What's up guys, Asian here again with another build video. This time we're going to be going over the Stamina Warden DPS for Clockwork City. Just like the rest of our build videos, we'll be going over our gear as well as our ability bars and CP point distribution. And we'll top things off with the 3 million dummy Parse, just to get an idea what the rotation will look like, as well as take a quick look at our comment metrics report and have a quick discussion about where Stamina Wardens kind of fall in the endgame DPS. So starting off here first with our gear, our monster helm of choice is going to be a Velodreth. You can use Celine's if you want to, but Velodreth is going to give you a little bit more DPS, but Celine's is easier to get, so do keep that in mind when you're deciding which monster helm to use. For our body, we're going to be going with Twice-Fanged Snake here, all divines with stamina. This is where your sets may vary depending on your group composition. If you're the only stamina DPS in the group, then you will end up using something like Twice-Fanged Snake or Spriggans, a more selfish penetration set, just so you can hit that penetration cap of 18,000. But in a group with multiple stamina DPS, you might be asked to use a group debuff set such as Night Mother's Gaze or Sunderflame or Morag Tong. So that's all going to depend on your group composition. This particular setup is assuming that you are one of 2 stamina DPS in the group, so you are going to be using Twice-Fanged Snake in order to help yourself out a little bit more. But again, you can use Sunderflame, Night Mother's Gaze, Morag Tong depending on your group composition. Your second set is going to be a Vicious Ophidian with all weapon damage enchants. Stamina DPS this patch are going with a heavy attack build. Basically, they're heavy attack weaving on their front bar, putting 2 or 3 heavy attacks in. So that's where your sustain is going to come from, so you don't really have a need for any stamina regen glyphs on your jewelry. For our front bar, we're going 2 daggers of the Vicious Ophidian. Your main hand here is going to be an infused dagger with a poison weapon enchant. You can go with Nirnhoned, although for my testing, infused has ended up winning out. And your offhand is going to be a sharpened dagger of Vicious Ophidian with a weapon damage enchant. You can go with precise or Nirnhoned. Sharpened will give you a little bit of an extra boost and will kind of reduce the amount of CP points you need to put into piercing to hit the penetration cap. For our back bar, we're going to be using the Maelstrom's Bow with Nirnhoned or Sharpened as your trait of choice. We won't be using any enchants, instead we'll be using poisons instead. We have double Ravage health poisons. These poisons can be made using Alkahest and then Blessed Thistle, Fleshfly Larva, and Nightshade. It's fairly inexpensive ingredients. The only expensive ingredient there is really going to be Nightshade. That just kind of jumped in price due to this change in the meta. Going over our stats real quick. 64 points into stamina, that leaves us with 16.2k health. Wardens do have a little bit of extra self-heals in there, so depending on how comfortable you are with your build and the trial and dungeon mechanics, you can run all points into stamina. Otherwise, if you want to get some more health in, you can move some points into health. You won't see that big of a DPS loss. Remember that a dead DPS is negative DPS, so you want to remain alive so you can continue to maintain your DPS. For our Mundus, we'll be using the Warrior. You can go with Lover if you're the only DPS in the group and you need that extra penetration, but it is better in my opinion to stick with the Warrior as your Mundus Stone and just use CP points to hit the penetration cap. For our bars, our front bar here, we're going to be using Bird of Prey, Subterranean Assault, Blood Craze, Deadly Cloak, Rearming Trap, and we have Flawless Dawnbreaker. Dawnbreaker is here only for the weapon damage passives. You won't be using this as your main damage ultimate. For our back bar, we'll be using Razor Caltrops, Poison Injection, Endless Hail, the Bullnetch, and Green Lotus. This Green Lotus is here for the additional self-heals. You can replace this with something like Expansive Frost Cloak here to give yourself some more resistances. Gives you the major resistance buffs, or you can use Ice Fortress. That gives you minor protection, which helps out your survivability. So choice is yours. I like using Green Lotus, but you can go with Ice Fortress or Expansive Frost Cloak. The advantage of using Green Lotus and Bullnut is that you get Major Brutality and Major Savagery from these two buffs as long as you maintain them. So you can instead use trash stamina potions that you pick up, or just plain stamina potions, which might be cheaper to make compared to Essence of Weapon Power. Our ultimate on our back bar is going to be Ballista. This is going to be the main ultimate you use as your damage ultimate. For your CP points, as of Clockwork City, you have 690 champion points as the cap, which gives you 230 to play around with on each of the 3 colors. Starting with our green CPs, 75 into Mooncap, 75 into Tenacity, which leaves 80 points, which can be divided into these 3 nodes however you see fit. I have 28 into Shadow Ward, 26 into Tumbling, and 26 into Warlord. For our blue CPs, I have 20 points into Piercing. This particular CP setup is optimized for the raid group that I run with. We get Infused Torag's Crusher, a Stamina DPS running Night Mother's Gaze, and a Stamina DPS running Stamina Templar running Power of the Light. So that's where I get my piercing CPs from. Depending on your group, depending on how many debuff sets you're running, you might need to put more points into piercing or take points out of piercing accordingly to hit that 18k cap. If you do have to put points into piercing from the other nodes, I recommend taking out of Precise Strikes first, followed by Thaumaturge and then Master at Arms. Leave Mighty at 49 points. That's kind of the constant here. So I have 61 in Thaumaturge, 56 into Precise Strikes, and 44 into Master at Arms. Again, play around with your CP points, do the math, figure out how many points you need to put into penetration to hit the penetration cap. For our red CPs, this particular configuration is a one-size-fits-most. You can move these points around based on the content you're running. For example, if you're running Maw of Lorcage, which has more magic damage versus physical damage, you might want to move points out of physical mitigation trees nodes and put them into your magic damage mitigation nodes. So do keep that in mind. 61 in Ironclad, 1 in Medium Armor Focus, and 56 in Thick-Skinned, Hardy, and Elemental Defender. So our food we're going to be using is going to be Max Health, Max Stamina, and we will be using Essence of Weapon Power Potions, which give us Major Brutality, Major Savagery, and Major Endurance. If you have Alchemy up to level 50 and have medicinal use all the way up to 3 out of 3, then as long as you keep using your potions as soon as they're available to be used, you will maintain those 3 buffs for the duration of your fight. So now we're going to go ahead and start our Parse. One thing to take note of, Subterranean Assault does provide Major Fracture. So keep that in mind when we review our Parse. Not all Stamina DPS Parse classes have a source of Major Fracture. For example, Stamina Templars and Stamina Sorcerers do not have Major Fracture as any of their class abilities. So our Parse is going to be somewhat artificially inflated. Also keep in mind that Bird of Prey gives us Minor Berserk. This normally comes from Combat Prayer from your healer. So again, not all classes have access to Minor Berserk. So do keep that in mind when we do our Parse and we see our final numbers. So here we go. We're going to go ahead and start our Parse in 3, 2, and 1. there we have it. That's the Stamina Warden DPS Parse. Just do a caltrops over there just to make sure we don't accidentally pull another Parse and mess up our combat metrics report. 35.7k. There was a little bit of lag there, so the Parse was not as clean as it could have been. I was missing quite a few light weaves in there, and there was some delay in how my abilities were firing. You saw there was a little bit of delay on my bow bar from here and there, so do keep that in mind when we take a look at this Parse. I could hit higher. I have hit as high as 37k on this, but this is kind of, it's not really there to show you what the Stamina Warden can do, but it gives you a sense of what the rotation is going to be like. So the Stamina Warden rotation is a little bit funkier compared to other Stamina DPS. The only class that has a more complex rotation is probably going to be your Stamina Nightblade due to Relentless Focus. Subterranean Assault has a 3-second cast time, so to speak. So that's kind of where the wonkiness in your rotation comes in. You're going to have some drop off in a lot of your dots because you're going to be prioritizing Subterranean Assault over things like Blood Craze, for example. As you can see here, Subterranean Assault makes up 1/10 of your DPS and hits fairly hard, so it is a very powerful skill to have, and it's a very powerful skill to use. So you're going to want to prioritize making sure you always have those shulks going up whenever the previous cast has finished. Stamina Wardens here can pull very respectable DPS. They have a pretty powerful cleave move in Subterranean Assault. It hits very hard and hits for a lot of enemies. It's great for trash pulls, so Stamina Wardens are definitely in a good place right now in terms of where they stand at endgame content. Stamina DKs and Stamina Nightblades can still pull higher than a Stamina Warden. Stamina DKs in particular are more desirable now in endgame content in those very top tier raid guilds, but a Stamina Warden can definitely rival a Stamina DK in terms of multi-target DPS. They just fall a little bit short when compared to single target DPS. So that's it for this build video. Hope this helps, and I'll see you guys in the next dungeon.